Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, the show where you come for your rambling geeky download. My name's Tommy, and I am delighted, as always, to be joined by my friend and co-host from across the pond. It's our resident kamikaze pilot of the pod, DL. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm a failed one if I'm here with you.
Yeah, you are failed.
I'm a dishonored
Did your plane have problems as well?
Yeah, mine had many problems, including the pilot.
You didn't want to fly.
Yeah, I just didn't even get in. The pilot, I had an ankle injury. Couldn't get up the
ankle injury of 1998.
Yeah,
it's still hurting
couldn't
you.
get up the what do they call it? The gang, not the plank.
The steps. I don't know.
The steps. Yeah,
yeah.
Dude,
tough one
pretty
this morning.
crazy though. Like that's like a thing. It was like we, like
this is how we defeat
we have
the
bombs.
Enemy. Yeah,
but
of bombs.
That's not enough. We must crash the plane.
Let's use our humans.
It does seem a bit like crazy.
Anti-life?
Well, definitely anti-life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not pro-life, but it does seem a bit like, like did anybody stop to just be like, but the bomb does.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Bomb does it better.
In fact, it's engineered
Bullet
for this.
does better.
Yeah.
No?
But I think I don't know, I haven't read any like World War II lore, but I got to imagine like it did strike fear into the other side because it's like
it was an honorable sacrifice.
If you see the plane coming, you're like, it's not just dropping bombs. Like if it misses,
that shit ain't gonna stop.
That thing will just head straight. Like it is probably, but also like easy target, like flying directly at you if you have
Oh, it depends because guns back then weren't particularly like accurate. I mean,
weren't they? Pearl Harbor, they made it seem like they were.
Yeah,
Josh Hartnett took a few down.
Yeah, well, he would. Of course he would. Now, guys, the reason we're talking about kamikaze pilots is because the movie we're talking about today is Godzilla Minus One. And my God, I went into this with no expectation.
Yeah, me neither. But what a name, like Minus One. I still, having seen the movie, don't understand why it was called Minus One.
I will tell you that when we get to talking about our main topic today, because that's actually super interesting. But went in with no expectations.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. And it was bloody spectacular, DL. I'm really happy we did this.
I enjoyed it as well.
So different. Not what I expected.
Well, it wasn't cut from the same Hollywood cloth in a lot of ways.
Well, 100%. Hey, mate, how have you been? What's been happening?
Been good, man. Just hosted the team for a nice little taco Mexican food party at my apartment 2 days ago. So I made 3 meats.
Tacos?
Made the chicken.
You didn't bring me any?
No, I did not. You can come over later if you want some. Made the carnitas as a pork. And then I made the carne asada. Very good. It's like a proper, cooking for 20 people was like a proper prep.
Yeah, wow.
It was like, I was doing it for like the night before, all the marinades, all the dicing, and then probably half of the morning. You've been
a good house husband.
It was delish, dude. It makes me wish I had more time to properly cook.
I love cooking.
Yeah,
I bloody love it. I made ironically, because today's topic, I made a katsu curry just the other day.
Oh, nice.
Surprisingly, it's not that difficult to make. It just takes a lot of time. The curry sauce specifically, So I just breaded the chicken and did all that stuff. But the katsu sauce, when you've got hankering for something and you're like, only that will do.
Yeah.
And I was like milliseconds away from ordering from Uber Eats or whatever.
There's plenty of options.
And I was just like, nah, I'm going to make it myself. So I made it, and my God, I somehow smashed it.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely more like wholesome when you cook it and you've made it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels a little bit better.
Don't you just feel that sense of love?
For sure, especially when you nail it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I remember, I had my first carnitas tacos with like the avocado, like the guacamole I made with like feta, and I was like, fuck, that's good. I was like, I killed it, dude.
Yeah, of course it was good.
Yeah, I fucking killed it.
You had all of the stuff in there. I
fucking killed it. But you can cook something poorly and it doesn't taste good. It's like, I guess my point is like, I was like, this is restaurant grade. Like I could have had this taco at a restaurant.
If you may say so yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I did a cool thing this week.
What
actually.
Else did you do,
So I went to the Australian Screen Editors Awards, which effectively is bringing together of all the editors across industries. So movie, TV,
commercial, everything
you want, documentaries.
They have their own table, the commercial
giving them awards that we didn't know.
It's like in the back.
Just sitting on their own.
It's like those guys kind of suck.
No, everything was in there, even like animation, which was fantastic to see. And my company, the one I work for, actually sponsored an award. I was probably about 12th on the list to go, and about 12 different people couldn't actually go. So but it was nice that I got to see it, and it was really interesting. So one of the awards that was won was for Chris Hemsworth Limitless TV show.
Yeah.
The one he did where
he found out about his own.
Yeah, and he was pushing his own boundaries. One of the people that had edited, I think it was like the second episode.
Okay.
And it was so interesting. And to talk to them about the tools they use to do it, the things, the workflows, the processes they have to edit. Super interesting. They're also super creative. all just sit in dark rooms all the time.
They
were all very pasty, much like myself.
not a tanned, bronzed
not a tanned person in the room.
Wasn't like a bodybuilding competition. Quite the opposite.
No, they could have done with some of that roll-on stuff though.
Yeah.
That was real fun and a real good insight into the industry and how like people don't get rewarded for editing that often. It's super weird. It's one of those things that doesn't seem to come up. Have you ever heard of who edited the Oscar-winning movie?
Well, isn't that partially cinematography?
No, it's it's all post-production. Cinematography is all production.
I thought cinematography was how the film was like constructed and put together and including editing.
Well, cinematography is literally just like the filming of it, right? We're digressing. Guys, there will be time codes in the description. Feel free to jump around. If you want to jump to our main topic, we just mentioned it's a doozy this week. We would love you to stick around, though. Listen to us, give you some recommendations maybe about some things we have been up to. But DL, I have one question for you before we move on. If you were going to rate this podcast on a scale of -1 Godzillas to 5 Godzillas, how many stars would you give it?
6 Godzillas minus one. How about that?
I love it.
6 Godzillas.
I love your math there. That's good work. We'd love it if you guys could give us a 5-star review. You can do it right there in app if you've got your phone open right now. Apple, Spotify, whatever you're in, please do. It does help the show. You know how algorithms work.
Do you? I don't. But
somebody
does.
Some algorithm does. DL, what have you been up to, buddy?
I have been, I guess, researching this Rebel Moon thing because there's a bunch of news coming out.
Ooh, because we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we are. And
wait, is that out next week or the week after?
It's coming out soon because it's like plastered everywhere.
So this is Zack Snyder's upcoming Netflix show.
Film. Well, it's a movie. It's a duology.
Mm.
Which basically in real terms means like a movie that was too big to make one. Because there's no such thing as duologies, right? Like
Zack Snyder. Funny that, isn't it?
No one ever is like, I'm setting out to make 2 movies. It's always 1 or 3.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is obviously...
It's either one or the really studio mandates you do a trilogy.
Exactly. So the thing about it is like, I'm actually going into this with like, I don't think it's going to be good.
Okay.
Just FYI. Like that's my stance. I'll be proven wrong. But there's just the things he's saying. Like I'll read a quote. There was never a script. It was always just a pitch. And I was just a big Star Wars fanatic. It wasn't necessarily a certain thing I wanted to see in Star Wars, but it was more that I just loved the iconography, which to me is like exactly what I think this is. It's like
iconography.
He likes all the things he likes from a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, right.
Is that what we said like a movie
6 weeks ago?
No, I know, but he's literally saying it. So I'm like, now there's no doubt in my mind.
No
like, this is what it is. Yeah. And then he's like, he eventually drew from a myriad sources to build his lore. It's like, yeah, basically he stole everything. It kind of just feels like this movie is going to be like the equivalent of the results you'd get if you asked ChatGPT to like come up with a new sci-fi movie.
Yeah, brilliant.
That was inspired by Star Wars.
You're like,
this is the script.
Here's the sci-fi things I like.
Yeah, like, can you make a movie about it? And it's gonna be like The Forgotten Child. That was like, like it's gonna be just a lot of fluff. Like
maybe he has.
I could be wrong, but I was looking at that and I'm not that hopeful.
Well, we haven't got around to watching it yet. That's coming out very soon.
For sure.
We'll either talk about that next week or for our last episode of the year, perhaps.
For sure, we will. I just was giving a little preface to it because I read a bunch of stuff about it. But other than that, man, I burned through last weekend. I said I'd started Red Rising.
Yes.
I was like 100
the book.
Yeah, I was like 100 pages in, and then last Sunday I literally read like the rest of the book all in one sitting. I really liked it. I loved it.
You liked that book way more than I did, I think.
I liked it a lot.
Like, I liked it. I just felt like it was very much a person's first attempt at writing a book.
For sure. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Undoubtedly, there's things that like it's like has flaws, but like as a story, like that was engrossing. Like I thought it was really, really. I hope my first book's like that.
Yeah.
Like it was like
he
created a really, really compelling list of characters. I think, and
a few at least.
And an even more compelling setting.
I think the thing he did really well was setting up some good rivalries. I think it's really interestingly done, but there are bits where they just speed through, and there's probably spoilers for Red Rising, should we say?
Yeah,
very quickly.
I mean, real quickly, definitely.
They
spoilers.
Speed through some bits so the final battle, it goes full Lord of the Flies, full battle royale.
Yeah,
and what happens is it's hard to explain without people understanding the book, but the Battle Royale is happening.
It's like Hunger Games on crack.
Yeah, right. So if you imagine Hunger Games, the people who are watching are in like an ivory tower, literally sitting above above what's going on. They go up and just kill a bunch of these people in the ivory tower. And I'm just like, that feels unnecessary. Like, it just didn't, I felt like it didn't really flow with how, they're they were all being sort of brought in like cattle for a lot of it. They were just put on a certain direction and they had to follow it. It just felt weird, some parts of it.
I thought that well, you're saying like there was 2 comments there, right? It was like super fast and moved fast towards the end. And like, I think that was intentional.
It certainly sped
I think
up.
that was intentional. I think it was like Darrow is a character of momentum, right? And he had like a lot of momentum. And if he waited too long to do certain things, he would have been thwarted because all the odds were against him. So it was like, how do I do this very fast in a way that can basically, I can bulldoze my way through this.
Yeah, right.
And I think that was like by design. And I do think, like, I know you have the Olympus, conquering of Olympus. I thought it was like, it made sense for the lore that they set up, basically being like, there was so many things of like, if you don't cheat, you're cheat if you can, basically.
Yeah, right.
They'd set that up multiple times. And they also set up that the people that would be in this, like running this thing, are actually not the most respected people in this world. And so their spoilers, them being like killed, actually kind of aligns with the culture of the Iron Golds. Like the Iron Golds would not give a fuck about this game. They care about the products of it. And if the product of one of them proved that they were more badass than anyone ever thought it could be, right? Now they're going to set up things to stop this from happening again. Like, but I found that believable in the sense that he wouldn't have been punished, and that for someone like his character who has nothing to lose, of course he might do something crazy like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I really enjoyed the book, and I think it's just set up so much to come.
Yeah, right. I agree with that.
I'm excited to read the second.
I think it's more that like the bits where they had an opportunity to flesh that out and give you insight into that, or at least the mindset of Darrow to be like, this is the reason I'm doing this, as in like he has nothing to lose. It sped right up, and then it would slow down at weird times, and I'd be like, why are we sitting here with you with an injury for 4 chapters?
It's plot, right? Like you can't, like certain things, if they told you what he was thinking in that moment, it would have ruined the next 3 chapters twist.
Yeah, sure. It was
a bit of like architected that way.
Yeah, sure. I just feel like it just lacked a little summon, which probably is going to come in the future books, I would assume.
I don't know. I feel like they're definitely gonna, like, I guess if you want more lore, I've heard that if you want more like exploration of like of what's going on around all these characters, that's definitely what I've heard comes.
Yeah, right. Do you recommend this to our lovely listeners?
I would recommend this to anyone that
Red
likes
Rising,
Lord of the Flies, Ender's Game, Hunger Games. Yeah. It's like I would argue a better version of Hunger Games, but more adult.
Yeah, right.
More brutal.
That's fun.
And,
yeah, it is kind of brutal,
and a bigger world. It feels like it's going to be a much bigger world.
Say it's going to expand into bigger worlds. Absolutely. Yeah, cool. I like that one.
And it's got a little like a Roman kind of feel to it. Hey, like this is like what it might have been like in militaristic Rome or Greece, like with all these different. It's like there's a feudal element, so there's almost like a Dune element for the world, not the writing.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah. The world building's like we say, it is his first time, so it's his first chance at writing a book. So it's not perfect. It could get better. It's got a lot of opportunity to get better. I like it. I
watched a couple comedy specials. Matt Rife and Stravos Halkias, what did you
think of the Matt Rife one?
I thought it started slow and it finished strong.
I enjoyed the Matt Rife one.
I thought it was good. It feels like he was purposely trying to piss off his female audience. Like, did you get that vibe? Like he's like, I'm kind of over being known as the dude that a bunch of chicks like because I'm good looking. I'm going to try and alienate them and bring the boys on board.
We actually watched that exact one recently as well. Yeah. And it's apparently getting a lot of flack because he makes a joke about domestic abuse, and you can't really joke about that, but like, I mean, it is comedy, and it's really hard because comedy is supposed to be that last frontier, but a lot of people apparently have taken offense to that. Specifically,
you can joke about it if people laugh. That is the line.
The question is, are they laughing though? I didn't laugh at that joke. People did
in the audience.
Okay, all right.
I mean, like,
okay.
Maybe you didn't, but like, I guess that's the and at the end of the day, his shows will tell. Like, do people buy more tickets to his shows or not?
God damn! I just googled him. He is jacked.
Yeah, I mean, all he does is go to gym and do comedy.
I mean, great personality, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got a few fun things, DL. And would you recommend either of those, Matt Rife? Or
I would recommend both. Stavros is pretty funny. I think you'd like
that
him.
One. I have to watch that. We actually watched Pete Holmes' Netflix special. Do you know Pete Holmes?
That's old though, isn't it?
No, he's got a new one out. It's like in 2023, I think. So he's the guy who basically started off as part of College Humor. He did the Batman specials where he's like, Batman can't stop thinking about sex, or Batman versus Superman, the conversation would actually go like. The guy's fucking hilarious. Watch his comedy special. it's kind of just, it's almost like his like 30-second skits like really stretched out. And it's not as good as I hoped it would be. I kind of got bored.
I'm trying to remember what this guy looks like.
He's so nondescript. He's dad bod, floppy brown hair, white guy. Like,
did he have like a mic thing? Oh yeah, I've almost watched his.
Yeah, I
think I started it, and then I was like, this isn't that good.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend. This is one thing that I definitely wouldn't recommend. I think we may have even turned it off.
Yeah, I would recommend both of the other guys, but I started his, and it was like, this is kind of like floppy. Just wasn't it
didn't have much bite to it. Yeah. It was very.
There was definitely
PG.
No jokes to question about domestic violence.
I know. Like, it was like, I think he's got like he must have a target audience. Like, he's got something about him, but I didn't love this. Like, his character work I find way more interesting when he's doing
skits.
the skit stuff. He's even brought them back. He started doing like Batman fires the Justice League and stuff, and it's like little skits of him sitting having a conversation with a fake Aquaman and stuff. It's pretty funny. Like, they're pretty funny.
It's very different.
Yeah.
It's a very different type of comedy.
Yeah. I feel like this comedy show is, like I say, a bit too PG for me. Another thing I did this week was the partner had a Novito week. So we watched Double Jeopardy from the 90s. Have you ever watched Double Jeopardy?
Like maybe back in the... Is that just like you just mean Jeopardy?
No, Double Jeopardy.
What's the difference?
No, it's a movie, right?
Oh, I haven't seen the movie.
No. Let me quickly tell you about Double Jeopardy. And I had never actually seen it. So I was like... And the partner gets weird choices sometimes. It's just like...
sounds like
let's watch this. I was like, holy shit. So it's Tommy Lee Jones, Ashley Judd. It's actually a pretty cool cast. Like a couple of like those guys, like Bruce Greenwood, you'd know him. So the idea is that this dude is super rich, hyper rich, and occasionally, well, you think he is, and occasionally he just decides that he just wants to have a change of scenery. This is the 90s, so there isn't like cell phones or any of that stuff to track you around.
Yeah.
So he will effectively just either murder like the person he's with, or he will like fake his own death and just run out of town. So this Ashley Judd takes the hit, goes to prison for like however many years for his murder, quotation marks.
Yeah.
Comes out and finds out that he's actually still alive, and he's now dating the au pair who was looking after their kid. And Tommy Lee Jones is like a gruff police type who believes her but doesn't believe her, and comes on this journey with her. It's actually a lot of fun. I was surprised how much fun I had with this for like
where did she find
a
this?
90s movie. I think she'd seen it before. So this came out in January 6, 2000. So it is literally the end of the 90s.
Got it.
And you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, it's really fun. Like, I was surprised how much fun I had with this. And the final thing I watched, I'd recommend that, by the way. The final thing I have been watching, is only about halfway through, is I've been watching, and it's kind of aligning to what we're talking about today, the new Monarch Legacy of Monsters TV show.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Have you watched any of it?
I've watched like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, right, okay.
So far, it's not bad.
Yeah, I think there's
way better than the other ones.
Yeah, tell me about it, right?
Yeah.
As like a companion piece to the movies, which I think we've talked about at least one of them. I think we talked about
they were all
Godzilla versus Kong on the podcast.
Like center of the earth.
Yeah, oh my God.
It is so bad.
So I've just released a YouTube video about it, and it's doing all right. You guys should check it out. It's before you watch. If you haven't seen this, and I know a lot of people haven't, check it out because it gives you like a nice rounded overview. This show's probably more, I'd say, about the characters than the monsters.
100%.
A lot of people are saying, where are the monsters? But I think it's supposed to be about the PTSD of Godzilla ruined my city. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with that and everything around that, like losing family members or, you know, in this case, finding out you have a secret family.
Yeah, that was kind of like...
that was weird.
I mean, it's an interest. It happens to people. It's an interesting thing to explore.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
And the monsters look great in this. When the monsters are in it, they look really cool. Yeah. It also flits between like a time frame in the
70s,
1950s,
and 50s.
So around the end of the Second World War-ish, just after. Interestingly, not terribly far from what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, no, they're basically the same thing.
Very different production values, very different in terms of their earnestness. I really like Monarch. I would highly recommend if anyone, you know, is into that. I mean, like if you don't like monster stuff, don't fucking watch it. But
yeah, I mean, it is like, I think it's a more sophisticated than the movies.
Totally, absolutely.
You like, I mean, even if you don't like monster stuff, like if you hate it, don't watch it. But like, it's not really about the monster stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no,
so
it isn't.
Far.
It's about the relationships, I'd say. Yeah. Guys, if there's anything that you've done that you would recommend to us, please do let us know. We've got some fantastic recommendations coming through on the socials. We will give some of them a shout in the next couple of weeks. You can hit us up at podcastassemble or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. We're on Instagram. We're everywhere, baby. DL, do you want to preface our main topic?
It's the main topic theme.
Our main topic this week, as we've kind of already prefaced, is Godzilla Minus One, which is like it's a Godzilla movie that's not an American-made Godzilla movie.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's where they're traditionally from.
Yeah, but not the recent ones.
No.
So I'm just like prefacing that it is not from our Hollywood friends and sensibilities.
And do you want to know, to kick off, why it is called Godzilla Minus One specifically?
It has been a question.
You have been wondering. We walked out of the cinema asking the same
prequel?
question.
I don't even know.
So,
what is
Godzilla Minus One describes Japan as a leveled nation. So, sitting at ground zero after World War II, it's already been fucked up.
Yeah.
Godzilla comes in and wreaks havoc and takes it even lower than zero. So these people are lower than zero. That's the whole point of this film.
They are -1.
They are literally -1. And that is such an interesting descriptor for this movie.
It is.
Because it's set in the 1945, I think
it's a really good setting.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I just think that's a basic way of highlighting that they're down in the dumps. But I had no idea. So
yeah, but it's
thanks for the lore.
We're going to be doing very quick non-spoilers and then some spoilers at the end. But DL, before we do you have a stupid plot summary for this?
I do. It wasn't easy.
Because it's a good fucking film.
Yeah, it's good, and also it's just kind of like how any kind of dumb summary for Godzilla kind of just ends up sounding like the other Godzilla dumb summaries.
Well, I mean, you can keep using the same one if you want.
Yeah, a Godzilla film.
You.
Yeah, no, a Godzilla film where each idea and every idea for taking down the monster is worse than the last. To the point where by the end of the film, I thought someone might try and snake charm the thing with a flute. But we're enjoying the ride all the way due to the real character development sapped in a mostly historically accurate post-World War II Japan.
I like that.
Yeah.
It would have been funny if they had got the snake charmer out.
Yeah, just like, like, honestly, I was ready for that guy with the hair to be like, this idea will definitely not work. But who has a flute? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, that's where I was at. I was like, they're reaching.
They are really scraping the barrel with this one. All right, mine is a crash course in how World War II Japanese earnestness can defeat anything, even a metaphor for nuclear destruction.
True.
Because that is literally this fucking movie. Everyone is so...
That is Godzilla.
Goddamn earnest. And this is from Takashi Yamazaki. And it's got look, these aren't actors that I'm fully aware of, but the cast is really great. We're following Koichi and Noriko, who are... Well, Koichi was a kamikaze pilot, apparently. And a bunch of really, really well thought out, interesting characters around them. Very, strong personalities. And there's an element of sort of tradition versus a more forward-looking society and how the two are clashing in this. And it's just really nice. I really like what's happening here. Do you know, do you want to give us a bit of a quick plot overview before we...
Yeah, I guess we start out basically at the very, very end of World War II, almost the...
Well, they've been defeated, right?
They have been
Pretty
defeated.
much.
The war is not officially over.
Yeah, right.
By treaties and all that, but they have been defeated. It is known they're going to lose. It's very likely that they're negotiating their surrender. And we see our lead, is that Koyochi?
Yeah, I just said Koyochi.
Yeah, Koyochi Shikishima, who is returning from a flight, and we're not really sure the context, but he's basically a kamikaze pilot.
I like the ambiguity of that opening.
Yeah, we don't really know all the reasons why he's returning. Come to find out, spoilers for the very beginning of the movie. He was supposed to go on a kamikaze run, and he said there's something wrong with his plane, and he's come back to the kamikaze maintenance island.
Boy's lying.
In shame.
Boy's lying.
Yeah. He's lying. The maintenance pilot's like, there's nothing wrong with your plane. He's kind of beefing. He's like, what are you implying by that? Because it's very dishonorable not to execute your kamikaze mission, right?
Absolutely.
And there's obviously a conflict in the camp. Some people kind of agree with him, like, hey, what is the point of wasting your life on something that's not worth it? We know it's over.
That's a big theme of this movie.
Yeah.
Wasting life.
It's definitely a theme, and it's definitely something they explore. And through the night, after this happens, basically we get a Godzilla attack.
Yeah, they're really upfront with Godzilla.
Yeah, it happens right away.
2014, be damned.
Yeah,
Godzilla is right up in front of you.
Yeah, the alarm comes off, and they're like, "Oh, is it the Americans with some crazy weapon?" And it's like, "Nope, it's actually just Godzilla." And there's some really cool ways they hinted that, which we'll talk about later, about when Godzilla's arriving. But basically, we see Godzilla decimate this camp. And they're all hiding.
And this is when he's a baby.
Yeah, this is
little baby Godzilla.
Just a little bit. He's not that big anymore. He's at this point.
Yeah,
at this point. And they're all hiding away as Godzilla kind of wreaks havoc on the first few people, and it's kind of looking for things to do. And he
just wants to play.
Yeah, it was kind of he just wanted to throw a couple guys up and chomp. The leader of this camp goes, "Hey, run to your plane. It's sitting facing him.
You can fuck him up.
You can fuck him up. It's the only gun that'll do any damage." Now, frankly, me looking at this monster, I did not believe that it would have done any damage.
Koichi, man, you got it right.
So I kind of agree. It's kind of a similar ineffective strategy to him. It's like doubling down on the kamikaze story where he runs to go do it. He ends up pussing out cowardly and doesn't shoot it. And it just kills everyone except for him and one other guy,
one of the mechanics,
the main leader mechanic. And they're basically knocked out. They wake up. Everyone's dead. And he is shamed. He goes back to a post-World War II Japan.
Tokyo, which is fucked up.
Tokyo, which is basically in shambles from the war. And is shamed by all those around him, ends up stumbling into someone else who's been kind of going through going through some stuff. Noriko Oishi, who is basically running from the police with a child that's not hers, or a refugee child, a refugee baby, and she's decided to raise this baby, and they become this kind of makeshift family. Found family of kind of different people that have suffered post World War II, both orphans, the Noriko and the baby, as well as I don't think we get into Koichi's family history.
No, we don't at all.
I think. Oh no, they die as well. They die as well.
They die. We know they're dead, but that's all we know. And it's kind of like sort of Koichi, not necessarily. Yeah, it's more Koichi's like path to redeeming himself. This movie.
Yes, it's an arc of him like regaining his honor and his feeling of I am allowed to have a family.
Absolutely, and his honor in a time where honor is changing its meaning in that context.
Yes,
but the setting of this, the way this world is built, is so amazingly beautiful. This movie is outside of any real continuity, so it's not part of... I mean, I can't pretend that I'm an expert on the Japanese Godzilla films, but this is outside of the Japanese Godzilla films' continuities. Definitely not part of the American ones. It's kind of like, I want to say a closed story, except for the ending of it, which we'll talk about when we get to spoilers. But I like that it's its own thing. It gives you this like crazy, fucking angry Godzilla that is just like a hurricane.
It's kind of like irrelevant too that it's Godzilla.
Yeah.
It's almost like as if it was another war that they're having. It's more about the nationalism of Japan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like having to recover from a lost war, and what does that mean for those that are left, and how did they handle this next challenge as a nation and as a people.
And there's no ambiguity to Godzilla in this.
No.
Full stop.
No.
He is just a fucking wrecking ball.
Yeah.
He comes in. There are times when I'm like, is he intentionally standing on that house?
Yes.
Like, he is doing it to break shit.
Kind of angry. Yeah.
He's got like, I don't know, Limp Bizkit in his ears. Like, give me stuff to break. He is just messing shit up. But the one thing I found about this movie, and this could have just been us, we could have been in like one of those weird moods. Because it was so earnest. It just had like an unintentionally funny quality to it.
It's also just a culture shock of like Japanese culture. I think that like Japanese filming, I think they are a bit more like excessive, like in certain ways, like an emotion.
I see.
Like every Japanese movie I've seen, like sometimes there's not a lot of subtleties to the emotion. I think it is a style, kind of like Bollywood in a lot of ways.
Maybe
has its own style. But I could be wrong.
I give you that. It certainly is over the top in some of its portrayals of emotion.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
And I mean, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just how I was watching this. But I had a really fucking good time with this movie, wall to wall. As in, like, there wasn't any fat to this. The world building was phenomenal. Like, everything about the, post-war Japan was really beautifully recreated. The fact that they layered over things like the government refuses to come and save them. The government's all about propaganda that's making things worse.
Yep.
Really interestingly done.
Yeah, totally. And they even like talked about like why America wasn't involved.
Yeah, right.
Like, because it is kind of this thing of like, that is the biggest plot hole, I could say.
Why wouldn't the rest of the world?
It's like there's this fucking gigantic monster and no one else seems to care. There's like, here's a couple of ships, Japan. Hopefully you can figure it out.
Yeah, sort yourselves out, guys.
Yeah, like it is
this country that's been wiped out.
Yeah, it's like, and also like people would care if this, it's a
big
interesting topic.
It's also a thing that everyone would want to study as well.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that really got me about this was, and I mentioned a couple of times that, there's no ambiguity to Godzilla. He's just mean. He a real mean boy.
Yeah.
Is the reason I'm saying that is because in a lot of the Americanized movies, you get these like themes of like humans are the real monsters, and you know what I mean? All this stuff like we're destroying the world and Godzilla's going to make it better. There's none of that.
No, Godzilla's like a natural calamity almost.
Yeah, completely. He is just like a wall, like a force of nature.
Yeah.
And that's really interestingly portrayed in this by this big fucking monster. And after the first incident, so it's what, like a year, 2 years later?
Well, you actually don't get Godzilla for a while.
Yeah.
Like after the first thing, it's basically a character movie.
It's about 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's like a character movie for a while about like, as we talked about, investigating how you reclaim honor, what honor means, and in a setting of post-World War II Japan. And it's like, it sits in that setting for quite a bit of time, even to the point where like the first job he gets is like a job that's cleaning up the mines from the war.
I found that
interesting. And it pays really well because he might die.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So and then you get introduced to the ragtag group of his friends that are also the minesweepers.
Yeah. Did you not think, outside of maybe those specific minesweepers, did you think there were a lot of people who were just like telling Koichi to kill himself? They were just like,
yeah, no, people didn't like him.
They really did not like him.
That's the point. Like that, when he came back as a shamed kamikaze pilot, that was what the old culture would have said about you.
Yeah, right.
And it's obviously a shifting culture, so like that would exist, and that would be quite real for him.
And everyone being like, just kill yourself.
Yeah,
it's like the internet nowadays.
Yeah.
You post anything on the internet, you'll probably get a lot of those
to
comments.
His face, bro.
Literally to his face.
No,
that
he had
shit
like
hurts, guys.
And he carried around like his the guilt, like a physical manifestation of his guilt in the form of the photos of like the family members of all the other pilots that died.
Yeah,
he was given that on his way home, actually, as like
by the engineer,
as a shamed, like as a way to shame him,
which was brutal.
Yeah, for sure.
How brutal are these people? Unreal.
Well, I mean, like Japan has changed a lot. Like if you look at Shogun Japan, it was crazy, dude.
But I find that fascinating. I think
like
about
Samurai
that
Japan
more than I do the Roman Empire.
Samurai Japan?
Yeah.
Well, it's similar. It's feudal, militaristic societies.
It's true.
Well, the Roman Empire wasn't feudal. It turned into like
it turned that way. I think feudal Japan was more. Like everything about
it's more medieval.
Everything obviously. Down to like, I didn't manage to kill this one person, so I got to kill myself. It's like, okay, you really don't give a shit about lives in this empire, do you?
Well, it was like honor. You gave a shit about honor.
Yeah, exactly. Honor over life.
Yeah.
Some of the performances in this were really good. Like we talked about earnestness before. It is incredibly earnest to the point of almost humor in a way. But like, I'm being a little facetious when I'm saying that. But I did really like the tension it made, because I think for me, I've had my brain broken a little bit by Marvel movies. After every fourth line, I expect there to be a quip or someone to do something silly or trip over. Whereas in this, it is like to the point where he's banging his head on the table, Koichi, because he feels so dishonored the whole time. He just needs people. People don't believe him.
At a dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if me and you had a sushi dinner, you express something like, a bit sad.
Yeah,
or depressing about your past life.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just like started slamming your head on the table.
But the thing I really liked about this was the fact that mainly because we don't know any of the cast, so we don't know if they're famous or.
I'm sure some of them are.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying they're not. I'm sure a lot of them are. But what I'm saying is because we don't know who these cast members, we don't know specifically who any of them are. The tension this movie made and the fact it was so honest and pure in its acting. Anyone could have died at the end of this for me. Literally everyone could have died. This could have been one of those movies where like the White Walkers come in and just wipe the city out.
Fair.
And we just have to sit in this notion of holy shit, everyone just died.
Totally.
That's how I felt all the way through. I was like, the plan, which we're going to talk about, just might fuck up and they might all die. Like I was ready for that the whole way through.
Could have been.
And I like that not knowing. And I feel like whenever you watch, like, I know I keep talking about Marvel films, but whenever you watch that, you know who's going to survive for the most part. Totally. 99.9% of the time.
That's the problem with Marvel.
The problem with a lot of movies.
With like even like good books that I like, I'm like, you need to kill more people.
Just kill anyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like Stranger Things. Perfect example. Anyone of the main cast should have died.
Because it's an 80s movie, season. I kind of like
show.
Yeah, I mean, you get my point. Like, it's made after 80s movies. Like, that wasn't a thing in 80s movies. So I kind of like, I'm okay like putting it in that tropey.
Kids died in 80s movies.
Not really. Like, not the main characters.
I don't know. There's so
like
many.
Someone will by the end of Stranger Things.
There's so many main characters. I think Finn Wolfhard should die. We're getting on a tangent here. But it also explores a very different culture and style of monster genre to what we're used to, which I very much enjoyed being a part of, especially going to the cinema to see it as well, right?
Yeah. No, I liked it. I mean, it was just, I liked it because it was just a good movie. It was a movie set in, a good setting with a planned arc that was investigating like real themes and wasn't over the top action.
Absolutely.
Wasn't over the top.
Well, the action...
crazy part like about this movie though, for me as like a non-Godzilla fan that's seen a lot of these movies.
Yeah.
The heat wave was just like...
Holy shit, that was
like bigger than a nuclear bomb, bro.
Literally, it was just an atomic...
Whatever they did, it felt big.
Yeah.
It felt big.
That's something to talk about. Let's talk about action. Yeah. Everything Godzilla did felt big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it had weight to it. Like when he turned around and his tail just like brushed a building, the whole thing shook.
Whole blocks.
I was like, yo. The only part of
I was like, yo.
The only part where that
Dude.
sort of falls down is when Godzilla does this atomic blast and everyone gets wiped out except the building that Koichi's hiding behind.
There's definitely
there's some plot armor
stupid
here.
shit for
yeah,
sure.
there's a bit of plot armor here. But yeah, you're right. It's very emotive. I think the unexpected relationships really hold this movie up. The action is really visceral in sometimes. Like there's a bit where there's some idiot guys stood on a top of a building filming the Godzilla for a news whatever.
Yeah,
they're
that
filming
guy
it
has
for.
an absolute death wish, and it is
Next to the fucking thing.
It is granted.
And then I'm so glad I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I was like, you just deserve this.
Yeah.
But the relationships between all of the crew on the boat, I liked that the boat was just like a shitty old wooden ship, and they were like,
it's a ragtag bunch.
This is what we got. This is what we got.
Yeah.
You know, I find that really cool. It was just nice all round. Had a good feel to it.
It did, and I really liked the concept of like the found family, and like obviously she wants him to marry her, but he doesn't marry her. But they're raising this kid throughout most of the movie.
Why do you think he didn't marry?
I mean,
her?
I think it's pretty clear that like he does not believe he deserves a family after what he did.
Yep,
and
this
so
isn't a Rico story.
It's coming to like it comes to him like, and he needs to like get over. He needs to deal with that wound before he's able to fully grant himself, happiness. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a good perspective on that sort of relationship and that dynamic, because the start of it is very much they're almost like hood rats at that point, street rats at that point, because neither of them have got anything. They're just trying to survive.
They have like no food. They can't even keep the risk is like, are they going to be able to keep the baby alive? Are they going to,
And when they get past that and they start making money, it's a case of, you're living together. You clearly like each other. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And he keeps rejecting himself any form of happiness. And it's probably down to that guilt he feels deep down.
Well, I mean, he's got nightmares about it. He's got, pictures that he looks at. Like, it's pretty clear. That's
Well, I'd say, I'd absolutely say the pictures and that constant reminding himself of the guilt mixed with the PTSD you see him sort of enduring as it's all happening.
Totally.
Really fleshed that character out in ways that I was not expecting.
Me as well. I also like just like the commentary by the other groups and like what the other people in his group and what they each represent. Like, one of them represents like obviously the ingenuity of Japan.
Yep,
for sure. One of them represents like the new youth and like not really knowing the weight of war.
These are his ship compatriots.
His ship compatriots. And then one's like an old dog. Like, he's just, I don't really know what I think
an old sea dog.
Yeah, he kind of just represents like the historical like the fact that Japan can change and like old dogs can be taught new tricks. I would say, but yeah,
I think he represents the fact that the old society, the society is evolving and how they all have to move with it, even the older generation,
and it's possible.
Absolutely. The one thing I'd call out is we mentioned that there is like a half an hour like gap where there's no action, there's no Godzilla, it's all like character work. I think at the time when I was watching that, I felt like the film had slowed down too much. And it may have I sort of fell off a little bit towards the end of that 30-minute spell. I was a bit like, the pacing's gone a bit awry here. You need something, or at least trick you. You know what I mean? Give you like, pretend like something's going to happen, then it doesn't like.
I didn't mind it, but I get your point. Like, but I thought like because it was like doing all the hard yards.
Yeah, right.
In like the tone of Japan and then like investigating that, I didn't mind it that much.
Yeah, and I think that was just at the time. I was really worried that this was going to go down the line of like, there's been some recent Godzilla movies where a lot of it is in boardrooms, like Shin Godzilla, for example, and all like the relationships are all about like people bureaucracy and trying to like, what should we do? It's not. This is like an action movie that has great characters.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah,
I liked it a lot. CGI was good. Can't really say anything about the CGI.
Godzilla was drooling a lot. A lot more drool than I remember in other Godzillas.
Every time.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do.
He had like rabies or something.
He was fucking angry.
Some kind of oral fixation. I don't know.
Every time Godzilla gets hurt in this or something happens to him, he regenerates with like a different scar on his body. And the way they map that is really interesting and kind of cool. I like that a lot.
I also thought he had mean ass eyes.
He was so mean.
He had a mean mug.
He only had one look and it was angry.
And it was just like very pissed off.
Mean mugging.
Like devil pissed off.
Big time. I said this at the top. He's just a mean boy.
And he was brooding. Like when it was chasing him, in the boat, that was pretty scary.
That's a really cool
I was like, it's kind of like Jaws-y.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Like that was a really fun scene.
Yeah, I like that a lot. This movie was on like a budget of like $15 million.
Well done.
Well, you wonder how many people got crunched to make this happen. Like, surely, like, if it's done in Japanese studios and stuff, people are getting crunched. There's going to be a lot more pressure.
I don't know the culture of Japanese studios, but it looked good.
It looked fucking excellent.
It looked good for 15 mil. They probably made some money. So maybe they should get some shares in the business. I don't know if
maybe they should.
I hope they should align those equity. Like, if you work really hard, you should align with the outcome, the upside.
It's unfortunately not how the movie business works.
Well, maybe it does in Japan.
I really liked it. Let's talk a bit about Tone's themes then. Spoilers. Do you have any good ones? We've talked about Found Family.
I mean, yeah, there's Found Family. Tones, I think it's just like, from a theme perspective, it's like letting you, I think there's definitely like what is redemption and letting yourself, forgiving yourself.
Yes.
Agreed. Self-forgiveness. I don't know if that's like a theme, but it's definitely like a through line. Yeah. And what is honor?
I agree.
That's probably the biggest theme they investigate.
Being progressive.
Yeah.
My iPad just died.
It's like honor versus like, I can't really think of it.
It's being in a society where honor is
dogmatism versus
honor. Yeah, exactly.
Dogmatism versus honor. Like, what is the difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 3 best and 3 worst. Then what we do is we give you 3 reasons you might want to see this film, non-spoilers, and 3 reasons you might not. DL, what are your 3 best?
The setting is really good.
Agreed.
The character arcs are really good, and I think just third best would be, I think, even just the dynamic between the characters. Like,
yeah, nice.
Like I don't have to talk about the action because the action is good, but it wouldn't be top 3 for me. It wouldn't be. Actually, on second thought, I'll say the action sequences are unique.
Yes,
they're unique. Yeah, so I'll say characters, setting, and the action sequences are like very, very fun and different.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, mine. I'm going to struggle with worst, by the way, but mine are that Godzilla. Like I mentioned, Godzilla is not a metaphor for human beings being the real monsters. I'm a bit sick of that humans being the real monsters thing. Like, I feel like we have that trope all the time now in everything we watch, and I'm like, I know we suck. Like, give us a break, guys. Next one is showcasing what can be done on a small budget. We talked about The Creator recently. That had a tiny budget compared to most big Hollywood features. This looks great. The script is clearly insane. Like, the characters are really well built out. Like, stop throwing $300 million at a movie. I bet most of that gets stolen. You know what I mean? Like, you're on a film set, like, 15 million goes in the director's pocket. Not maybe the director, that's harsh, but you know what I mean? Like, people find a way to siphon that shit off.
There's just a lot of grafting.
Yes, agreed. And the final one, which for me, I've done this previously, it sits in both best and worst. It straddles the two. It's like a grey middle ground is the earnestness of the movie. Now, it's best because I'm just glad we had a really earnest movie. Like, I really liked that it was not a quip every 15, 30 seconds. It made sense in the setting it was in, and it really built the characters properly. But worse, because I just don't think I was 100% ready for it. And there were times when I found myself almost laughing. I was like,
for sure,
why is he banging his head on the table?
For sure, it was very funny. I agree.
You know what I mean? It was an interesting watch in that respect. Do you have any worse?
Yeah, I think that from a worse perspective, I don't think I think there's some plot holes with like how the rest of the world, like I kind of couldn't get over that because they kept bringing it up. They're like, the U.S. can't spare a thought because of the Ruskies, but they're giving us a ship. Like, they brought that up like like that happened a couple times in the movie. And I was kind of just like, find a better way to not have them be involved, or involve them, but they can be involved in a way that actually adds to the narrative of post-World War II Japan.
Right.
And then that thing you're investigating, it doesn't have to make America or Britain a big part of the story, other than adding context to that part. I mean, right? Because it's unrealistic that they wouldn't be there.
You could have even made it that those countries just don't believe what's been said and what's happening.
Yes, and
because like if you
there's no satellites.
Yeah, precisely, and there's no way of getting that information to them. So like you tell in 1945,
they think it's a ruse.
Exactly.
They think it's
in
a
1945,
ruse.
You tell the US that there's this big fucking scaly monster here.
Yeah,
they're not going to believe you. They're going to think it's a hoax.
After you just got decimated.
Exactly.
Like, they're like, sure, guys. So that part, like, I kind of was like, man, there's some other parts, or I just think there's some Deus Ex Machina stuff that we'll talk about in a bit. That I don't fully believe. Other than that, I find it hard to pick a big third.
Cool.
I think it was pretty good mostly.
I agree. There were some pacing issues in parts for me, but I think in hindsight, they probably lent into the character work in a nice way, which maybe I didn't fully appreciate until I got the whole perspective of the movie. But yeah, it was a really, really good film. So let's talk critical reception. Can you guess for me, first and foremost, the IMDb score for this right now?
7.8.
8.5.
Okay, nice.
Flying high right now.
That's good.
What do you reckon about the Rotten Tomatoes percentage?
If it's 8.5 there, probably 90.
It's 97.
Yeah.
97.
I mean, I think like it's easier to get a high rating when not as many people have seen it.
Yeah, right.
I think
it's getting a bigger release now as well.
That like saw that wanted to see it when they saw it.
It had like a very limited release in the States, and I think it's been released to like 2,000 more cinemas. So it's getting bigger and bigger. It's doing the whole everything everywhere all at once thing.
Scale up.
And finally, Letterboxd, our classic, our favorite. It's all user scores, and it's always 3.6,
3.75.
It's not. It's 4.2.
Oh God,
I'm surprised.
I really underestimated this movie.
Yeah, but I think we did going in as well. I was just so surprised by this. Now, finally, what we do is we have our own rating system for this movie, which is very simple. Internet is binary. Is it better or worse than the most average movie we know, which as of this moment is still Aquaman 2018? DL. Is it better and why?
It is better, and it's better for all the previously mentioned reasons, and the fact that it's just not like it's got a purpose.
Yeah.
It's not just like, bubbles and rainbows and octopuses playing the drums. Like, it's not just...
It could have done with some octopus playing drums, though.
It's not just setting. I mean, it has that. It's not just characters. It has that. And it's not just spectacle. It has that. It's all three of them combined. Whereas Aquaman is kind of just a lot of spectacle.
Yes, agreed.
And CGI. I
like the purpose point. I feel like that's the key point here. I'm going to have to say it's worse because there's not enough Mark Wahlberg in this film.
I mean, by that definition, yeah. If that is the guy, if that's the bar.
It's just not that good. Doesn't have Mark. No, I'm kidding. I think it's for all the reasons you said.
Come on, guys.
It's better.
Godzilla's coming.
Come on, guys.
He's coming. And you know what? We can't just wait. We got to do something.
To come and talk to the trees with me, guys. Yeah. Oh man, I think that should be one of our famous rating systems. Is there enough Mark Wahlberg in this? Spoilers?
Yeah, do it.
Big spoiler time.
There's like two or three big ones.
There's only like 2 or 3 really big ones in this. So let's talk about the plan to destroy Godzilla first.
Which one?
The main one that the scientists come up with. So
because there's like so many before that where it's like, we'll put the wooden ship on the job.
Yeah, they
this
failed.
Little wooden ship. Actually, they were the closest ones to succeeding.
Yeah, they did pretty good.
They went backwards in terms of effectiveness of plan from the first one.
So what we find out is that one of the main characters on the ship is actually quite a well-renowned scientist in the community.
Yes.
And they get together all former naval peoples and vets to take out a couple of ships, and they have this plan whereby what they're going to do is take Godzilla to the deepest part of the nearby oceans.
The trench. The something trench.
And effectively
drown the motherfucker.
Bubbles to drown him.
Use bubbles to drown them, to give him a little... I think it's almost like an opposite of a kid floaty.
Yeah, right.
It's like a kid floaty that makes him drown.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like water wings for Godzilla, except inverted.
I think it's supposed to also crush him by the weight of the water.
Which is interesting because it's like, wouldn't it also crush the device? But...
Possibly so.
That
doesn't work. And then the secondary plan is that they have a floaty underneath him which pushes him back up, and the air pressure... You went to the bathroom at that exact moment.
I literally peed during the second part of the plan when they explained it.
He was like, I know the plan, it's all right, I'm going.
I was like, this is really
explained the next part of it, which was they then use a floaty to push him back up, and the idea is that the rapidly diminishing pressure underwater then fucks with his brain and kills him that way. That doesn't work either, funnily enough.
And as they're doing it, they eventually have to go to part 2. The first part doesn't work either. Doesn't work. And so he comes up and he's all like frozen. And I was kind of like, why is he frozen? What the fuck is going on?
Cold.
I didn't because I missed that part of the plan. So I was like, this is fucking weird. He's just ice.
And I couldn't explain it to you in the cinema either, which was hilarious. So the thing I liked about this is you have this subplot line which is going on in the background, which is Koichi, who of course we've been told all the way along he's a kamikaze pilot.
Yep.
And they have found this very modern, shall we say, airplane which they are going to use to distract Godzilla. It's one of the latest models.
Yep.
And he's going to fly it around its head to bring it out into the ocean to
get into the trench. Yeah.
Exactly. And what happens is Koichi, you can see it bubbling in his head. He decides that he's going to do his job from the World War and kamikaze Godzilla.
And it's been seeded quite well. Like part of me's like, kamikaze Godzilla, what's that gonna do? Well, but it was seeded well because the mine in the first attack they had, the mine gets in his mouth and almost kills him. It blows up his head and
he regenerates somehow.
So he's like, if we just have a bigger bomb with inside me and a fucking kamikaze pilot blow up and if I basically kamikaze this guy's guttural.
Yeah.
He'll die. He'll die. So it's like it's seeded quite well. You kind of know what he's thinking in the back of his mind, as does kind of all his teammates. They're like, don't do anything stupid. Like, we know you've been shamed. Like, don't this. There's a theme of like New Japan is life.
Yeah, right.
New Japan is like promoting and valuing life. And so that kind of plays into his team as they're doing this plan and prepping for it.
And as it fails, he then takes it upon himself to go and fly the fucking plane into Godzilla's mouth.
The plane which the original pilot or the original maintenance pilot that hates him for what he did in the beginning of the movie built. Yes. He helps refurbish it.
And the real spoiler here is that in coming to terms with the fact that he needs to sacrifice himself, said engineer then gives him a second chance by offering him a way out, which is an ejection seat, which, you know, you can see that coming a million miles away.
They tried to hide it, but it's kind of...
I don't know if they tried to hide it.
I don't know what they were trying to do. I don't know what the purpose of
They were very
was.
subtle about it. And, you know, they cut away at the right moment. And, like, he obviously, like, the plane goes into Godzilla's mouth, it explodes. You think it's defeated and everyone's happy. It's I really like that ending because he gets away, he gets a second chance, he gets to be with his found daughter.
I like it, but I'm like, surely there's the other spoiler is he was going away. He left saying like, you know, here's all my money to their neighbor. Please take care of my found daughter. Yeah. We also leave thinking the mom has died in one of the Godzilla attacks on Giba.
Well, let's go back to that very quickly then.
So like when it turns out she hasn't died.
Yes.
So like kind of part of me was like, somebody's got to die.
So she goes out for half of the movie, right? So what happens is when Godzilla attacks, sorry, where was it? Godzilla attacks?
It was like Giba or something.
Okay, when Godzilla attacked, it turns out that's where the found mother
works. She's in a big city.
Yes. Yeah. She's effectively working in the city. Godzilla, there's a really awesome action scene where she's on a train and the train is attacked by Godzilla and she's hanging off. And
very Lost World, Jurassic Park.
It's really well done action scene. And that's where the camera crew get fucked up. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was hilarious.
He is coming right at us. He is coming. This is very dangerous. We should not be here. Nope, you should not.
No,
you
should
die.
Not. Now you die. And what happens is effectively... she pushes him, Koichi, behind a building, which somehow doesn't get destroyed.
Godzilla's like heat wave thing is like a charge up. Like his spine gets like blue and it's like you can see when it's going to happen.
That's cool. Isn't that cool?
And so it's super cool. And she expects it and pushes him out of the way of the heat blast behind a building, which honestly should have been decimated as well because every other building was decimated.
Well, that's the problem for me. Why did every other building except that one? And it's plot armor stuff.
But then she just gets fucking
wiped.
You would think.
Well, Noriko,
it's a direct hit.
Literally, she stood in the way of the blast, or at least maybe slightly to the side.
The heat wave of the blast, where it decimated buildings, but somehow not her because we find out she's alive at the very end of the movie.
And the big spoiler is that she survives somehow with only a few bruises and a broken arm or something,
which is absurd. What do you mean a bit like, dude? When it shows him get a telegram at the end of the movie, there's like a telegram like that gets given to someone.
It's the neighbor.
It gets given to the neighbor while he's on the mission. So we think, oh shit, he's got this telegram. What does that mean? It's probably
I knew immediately.
I knew it was for her. So I was like, oh, it's kind of tragic. He may kill himself and she'll be alive, and that'll be a good tragic ending, or vice versa. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
But it ends up he doesn't die, and he comes back and gets a telegram, and it's that she survived and she's in a hospital somewhere way over there. Way away from the.
I'm surprised
battle.
she wasn't in multiple hospitals.
Yes.
After getting
so I was like, when I saw that, it all happens very quickly. Like you get the telegram, you see that it is, and then it's like cut straight to the hospital, and he's about to walk into the fucking hospital.
Yeah.
I turned to Tommy, obviously, as he's and I'm just like, she better be like a fried chicken. Like there better be just like a chicken wing on a hospital bed because this is ridiculous. Like there is no way that he comes in there and she's just like, oh, happy go lucky, like
Kentucky Fried.
I was like, this is like the image of it was too much. It's like no, it had like a bucket of KFC.
Yeah, literally
on this thing. Like oh no,
and this is where I sort of came into like laughing territory for me. Yeah,
I was crying.
It was fucking funny
because it was so earnest. And it's like, can you imagine? Like you could make a meme of that.
Yeah, totally.
In fact, we should. We should try and cut together a meme of like her getting decimated. Read the thing, and the next thing is like Kentucky Fried Chicken because it's so fucking. It's what it should be.
Oh, brilliant.
Anyway,
look, I enjoyed this movie a heck of a lot. Like that bit at the end, I was a bit like, oh come on, like kill someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone survived, like the whole crew. But like the interesting thing is that there's like almost a pre-credit scene where you see Godzilla fully regenerating.
Well, he's underwater. Like the bit of him is like regenerating.
Whatever's left is regenerating. So you never know. It could go the way of other Godzilla type movies from Japan where he becomes almost like a savior. Like, I mean, his whole brain got exploded, so maybe he's gonna be a completely different dude when he comes back. So maybe
I would like it if he was just like kind of this gnarly, grizzled, scarred Godzilla.
That'd be sick.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll fight other monsters in the next, because there's going to be a sequel if that's the. It seems to be doing pretty well at the box office.
Yeah.
DL, let's finish up then. Ultimately, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Would you like some trivia, true or false?
Give it to me, mate. Give it to me.
Okay, true or false, DL? Instead of creating a new roar for Godzilla, the crew just picked a roar from YouTube and used it for the movie. Is that true or is that false?
Feels like maybe they used it and edited it. True?
So instead of creating a new roar for this, the crew simply played the original Godzilla roar over loudspeakers and re-recorded the audio. That's so interesting.
I mean, like, why?
I mean, you need to make a new Godzilla noise every time.
I get that, but it's more like, why not just use the original? Why re-record it? Do they have the masters?
I don't know. Maybe it was to get more of like a visceral, echoey sound to it. I don't know. It's certainly interesting.
For sure.
True or false, DL? Gareth Edwards, who directed Godzilla 2014, the American version, attended a screening of this and said that he thought his version was significantly better. Is that true or is that false?
I mean, it's pretty rude to say, so I'd say false.
It is. He actually described the feeling of jealousy while watching a film, stating that this is what Godzilla movies should be like. And I'm with him on that, because this was the movement of Godzilla, like something that big just wouldn't move quickly. And I like that about it. It was sort of slow and kind of deliberate, especially when it was doing its beam thing. True or false, DL? The twist with Koichi ejecting from the plane before it crashing into Godzilla's mouth was actually spoiled earlier in the movie. Is that true or is that false?
The twist where the plane flies in?
The twist where he ejects, so him effectively surviving.
Was spoiled? I mean, true.
Well,
in many ways.
It is true, because if you can read German, on the seat, it says in German that it's a warning label as an ejector seat and not to touch the button.
Yeah, I mean, didn't even need that.
Yeah, not at all. You could just tell.
It was spoiled by everything.
Yeah.
It's called foreshadowing.
Honestly, man, people should check this out. Highly recommend.
Sure. Especially if you're like into this kind of stuff, like it's a good movie.
I think I am. I think the more and more I watch.
You like the monster stuff.
I do.
I generally would never watch this stuff.
Right.
Except for like, I saw Godzilla 2014 because it was like one of the most badass trailers ever. Do you remember that trailer?
Where it was all like in shadow
and smoke. It was
yeah.
badass. So I was like, okay, like that's pretty cool.
And Aaron Taylor Johnson was in it.
And I love Aaron Taylor
Johnson.
I love his Johnson. I love Aaron Taylor.
You love tailoring it.
Whoopsie. Anyway, the point being like, and also there hadn't been a Godzilla movie, an American one, since I was a kid.
1998.
Yeah. So,
which is a good thing, because that was a bad fucking movie. Ultimately, go check it out, guys. It's seriously good if you can get it in a cinema near you. I know it's a very, very limited showing, so find somewhere. We saw it in the city in Sydney. I'm sure you'll be able to find a way.
Yeah,
please do. DL, do you want to wrap up the show?
Of course, man. A big thank you to Matthew Bliss for editing and mastering this week's episode. If you'd like to hire someone to edit your podcast, he's very good. He has to deal with us, so
he has to put up with our shit.
Head to Matt. There's probably like 4 edits this time, right, Matt?
Maybe more.
14.
Yeah, exactly.
Head to
Matthew
Matthew
Bliss.
Bliss.
Like a ding, 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 ding.
Yeah,
ding,
seriously.
ding.
Like ding. Maybe just do a reel of it right now and just prove me wrong.
You can do it.
Head to MatthewBliss.net and book a consultation today. If you'd want to hear his work, he's got a podcast from My Home to Yours.
Yes.
An expat, repat podcast where him and his wife share their experience kind of moving around the world.
Well, we haven't talked about the video game awards that have just happened. So his other podcast.
I got halfway through that video.
Oh,
yeah. Was that his?
No. But his video game podcast, The Dead Drop, will more than likely take you through some of the highlights.
That will be very useful, because even this video I was watching to understand it was like 10 minutes long.
He's very funny, whoever the guy is.
On YouTube. So I'd rather have a podcast that told me about that.
You don't have to watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. So check out The Dead Drop by Matthew Bliss.
Do it to it. Until next time, you can find us at thepodcastassemble@gmail.com or podcastassemble on Instagram.
My man got it right.
Yeah, barely. There was a bit of hesitation. And yeah, I'm dyslexic. That's why I struggle with that.
That's fine. I know you too well.
Words are moving. And
thanks for sticking with it, guys. We really appreciate it.
Until next time, thank you guys. Thank you, Tommy. Talio.
Laters, Gators.